Sam was on there.
I thought Sam was on there.
Do we put an ad in the section?
Seriously, no shit.
Why not go to
He's saying nominate. He's all benefits. Come up with a position description for Alex. You make it more traditional.
I
So you have to move it to the Chartered Accountants Association. We're not doing it. Yeah, I think we just need to talk about how we do it.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the special council meeting held on Thursday, the 28th of May at 5:30. I'll begin with the Kaurna acknowledgement. The City of Prospect acknowledges that we are on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region, and we pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land, and we acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. And now the Council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. You guys want to come in a little bit closer? There's a little bit of noise in the background, so just... No, we need to leave them open, but just so that there's less distraction from the noise. Thank you. Okay. Item 2 on the agenda, on leave there are nil. 3, apologies have been received from Councillor Mark Stanton, Councillor Chewin Nguyen may be joining us. And they can come in if they want. Haven't heard from Councillor Barnett, so she may be coming soon. Indication of intention to declare a conflict of interest. Is there anyone intending to declare a conflict of interest? No. We'll move on to reports for decision. Item 5.1, Prospect Lifestyle Precinct RFP. Next steps, recommendation on page 5. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, obviously the main reason we're here tonight. I think this motion actually puts council and the community in the strongest position we've been throughout this entire process, the last two and a half years. For months, all the meetings I've had anyway, the residents have been asking completely fair questions. What will the heights be? What will the densities look like? What are the actual financial outcomes? What are the costs? What does the design really look like? And what are the benefits and trade-offs? The reality is, until now, we simply haven't had that information available because we've not gone to the market for detailed proposals. We've been operating off concepts, hypotheticals, estimates and guesstimates. This motion changes all of that. Supporting this motion finally allows council and the community to obtain the missing information before any further decisions are made. And importantly, there's no downside or risk to doing this. This motion does not lock council into a development. It doesn't approve heights. It doesn't approve the densities. It doesn't approve a sale or a lease. It does not commit council to proceed. What it does is allow us to properly test the market and obtain detailed concept designs, financial modelling, commercial offers, staging plans, delivery methodologies, and a feasible analysis, sufficient information to proceed with a probity review. Frankly, I struggle to see how anybody could argue that obtaining more information before decisions are made is a bad thing. If anything, this process strengthens transparency and accountability because it means future decisions can be based on facts, deep details and evidence instead of assumptions and hypotheticals. One of the strongest aspects of this process is it allows us to obtain a full and meaningful costings and commercial analysis to underpin the prudential review. This is critically important because a prudential review is the only true valuable when it's based on real proposals, real numbers and real commercial frameworks, not estimates or broad assumptions. So in many ways, this is the exact process residents have been asking for. Get the detail first, understand the impacts first, understand the costs first, and then make an informed decision. The report is also very clear that no binding commitment regarding disposal, development or implementation occurs unless all future statutory governance and council approvals processes are completed. So there's simply no risk to council or our residents in obtaining this information. In fact, not progressing this motion would leave council making future decisions with less information, less financial clarity and less certainty. This motion is about information gathering, due diligence, transparency and responsible governance. And I believe in supporting this motion as the most sensible and responsible path forward, and I fully support it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nelson. Do I have a seconder, Councillor Tavino?
I agree with and endorse the request for proposal, as it gives us the opportunity to gather extra information while we wait for a decision from the Planning Minister. This matter is important, and I think it is only fair and responsible that we do our due diligence before making any further decisions. Having more information in front of us will help us ensure that we are making an informed decision rather than rushing or relying on incomplete details. It is also reassuring that the Office of Local Government is comfortable with Council taking this step. That gives me great confidence that we are doing this appropriately, it's lawful and within the proper process. We are not stepping outside our role, we are simply making sure we have the right information available to guide our decision making. For me, this is about being careful, being responsible and being transparent. While we wait for the Planning Minister's decision, this process allows us to better understand the matter and make sure we have considered everything properly. I believe that this is the right thing to do. I believe that this is the right thing to do and I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Any further points, any discussion? Councillor De Backer.
Yeah, look, I really love the passion with which everyone speaks, and I think we're all after the same outcomes, but I do disagree with some of the points made. There is a risk, and some of those risks were identified at the most recent audit committee. There's an audit committee agenda on the 20th of April 2026, and one of the risks that did identify was reputational risk. The reputational risk in not following process, and the process has actually changed in endorsing this in this item. So in endorsing this, following the established roadmap builds trust in the process. So it's got to change direction. So at the audit committee meeting, it said the release of the RFP to be shortlisted proponents remains subject to the receipt of the Minister's decision on land revocation. Now, I know, we've received advice that we can go down this path, but there is guidance information on the Office for Local Government website, and it certainly says the council should not preempt the Minister's approval will be given in every instance. And I think in endorsing this motion, it's preempting it. And I think it's an independent process. I'm really encouraging to respect the independence of that process. And this process is not what was in the consultation. So when we went out last December with the revocation report to the public, the process was we'd receive the Minister's advice and then we would proceed to expression of interest and the RFP. I appreciate there's different views around the table, but that's my position. And just in regards to, you sort of hear around the table the importance of leadership, and I think there's different ways that leadership can look like in local government, and I put it to you that leadership can be gentle, can be slowing things down, it can be compromise or admitting that we've got some things wrong. Leadership can be resetting a project in response to changed economic situations and accepting that taking one's time can lead to informed decision making and better outcomes. Leadership respects the established process that has been consulted with our community, even if this means carrying major decisions to an election and a new council. So I won't be supporting this motion at this time, and I reiterate that I respect the independent, state process, and I believe that the council should wait for a ministerial decision before proceeding with a request for proposal, as was in all our previous roadmaps and what we had consulted on with our community. I would encourage other members not to vote for this motion at this time, but wait for the ministerial advice.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion with Councillor Holland?
Look, I listen to everyone here, and I can't say I agree with the risk factor with Councillor Backer. I think it may actually be the other way around. I don't see that there is actually the risk profile remains unchanged here in my belief. I'm satisfied with the legal advice we've received. There is no legal ruling against an RFP proceeding, a revocation application process. It's been done before without legal issue. It's been done on a few occasions, I understand, and it's happened very recently with the large council. And it may actually be a benefit to the minister who is reviewing the case to have an extra layer of detailed information and better understanding of what we're sort of maybe going on the side. It does maintain council's strong commercial standing, and it's gives it weight and that credibility. I think the more stalling we have, or just gives the markets more uncertainty. So I think it's actually a benefit to us, and I think it's a benefit to the residents who will have more detail sooner rather than later. So I'm actually happy to see this
Thank you, Councillor Holland.
RFP. Yeah.
Any further discussion? Oh, Councillor Greg, just got in, I was about to.
Oh, yeah, didn't want to lose that opportunity. Just a couple of questions first, if I can. The first one is, could I just be reminded what the quorum is for a council meeting?
I'm going to say it's 50% plus 1.
Which is 5.
2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. Plus me. 6.
So if Councillor De Backer and I left the room, what would happen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would strongly advise against that on the basis that if you deny council a quorum deliberately, you're breaching the code of conduct. That's my understanding. But regardless of that, the quorum would be denied and the meeting would not proceed. Unless and until, of course, Councillor Barnett maybe turned up.
That wouldn't be enough.
So-
Yes, it would be.
How long can you put this on hold?
You can adjourn for 15 minutes, is my understanding, Ms. Medro. And beyond that, then we need to postpone the meeting to another time, which could be...
I'll make it clear I'm not intending to. I just think it's a point worth making that we're making a decision tonight just on quorum. And if Councillor Barnett or I, or both of us got called out for a family emergency, I'm sure we're not, but if we were, we're a bit stuck. Anyway, I just want to make that point. My other question is, why is revocation no longer a barrier to proceeding with a request for proposal?
I'm going to hand the one to the CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and as I mentioned in open council on Tuesday night when the placeholder meeting item came up, I had a discussion with a senior representative of the Office of Local Government last week who invited me, as the CEO of council, to consider whether or not the revocation question was indeed a barrier to proceeding with a request for a proposal. He invited us to consider precedents, including that of the City of Victor Harbor. We have sought legal advice in relation to that, which has confirmed that it is possible to do it, but of course beyond that I can't give details as to what's in that legal advice. Members have a copy of that and we discussed that on Tuesday night.
Okay, thank you, that's very helpful. So, look, thank you, Mayor. I'm both surprised and disappointed that we find ourselves here tonight. Surprised because there was a roadmap that we were following. And timing doesn't quite suit the outcome, and so now there's a proposal to change that. And I'm disappointed because what's being proposed contradicts the advice that we've received in this chamber, publicly and privately, over the past few years. I can now say this, we received a legal and confidential briefing here on Tuesday night, which on essence went to why it's legally okay to change the rules of engagement. I don't intend to dispute the comments put to us, but I accept them for what they are. A legal opinion which supports a course of action, even in the absence of any written advice from the Office for Local Government. So my objection today is one more of governance and of policy. I cannot and I will not support this motion tonight because I believe Council is moving materially too far ahead of key unresolved issues. And importantly, one key issue of land revocation that we'd all agreed was vital before releasing a request for proposal. We all made that very clear. What troubles me most about this report is the contradiction at the heart of it. We continue to tell the community that nothing has been decided. Others have said that tonight already, that this is not a commitment and that Council retains discretion. But operationally, we're being asked to release a full request for proposal to the market, to commence a detailed negotiation, to progress towards a substantially negotiated land facilitation agreement and move towards a selection of a preferred development partner. And to me, this is not a minor procedural step, but it's a significant advancement of the project. And importantly, it's occurring before the Minister has even determined whether the land revocation process will be approved. And so I struggle with the sequence of governance here. If the Minister ultimately does not approve revocation, all we have achieved is an increase of sunk costs, heightened market expectations, and further locking Council into a pathway that becomes increasingly difficult to reverse. I also remain concerned about the practical effect this process has on future elected decision-making processes. The report authorises administration to progress negotiations and substantially settle commercial and legal terms before the matter returns to Council. So while technically no agreement is executed, the reality is once a preferred proponent is identified, negotiations are advanced and significant commercial work has been undertaken, future decisions become increasingly constrained by momentum, expectations and reputational pressure. And that is precisely the concern many members of the community are expressing. And I think we should acknowledge that concern respectfully rather than just dismiss it. I also note that the report states there will be no further community engagement at this stage because it is considered a commercial procurement process. But from the community's perspective, this is not merely procurement. This is at the point at which the project becomes more real, more advanced and more difficult to alter. I think the Deputy Mayor talked about some of those bits of information that will come back. I think many residents would reasonably ask if Council is comfortable negotiating major commercial and delivery arrangements now, why is the community not being brought along at the same time? I'm also uneasy about the flexibility that's been embedded within the design framework. The report makes clear that proponents may depart from the master plan where they can demonstrate alignment with broader objectives. Again, that may make sense, commercial sense, from a procurement perspective, but politically and from a community trust perspective, it creates uncertainty about scale, about height, about built form and what the community can genuinely rely on. So finally, I think we need to reflect carefully on the message we sent tonight. Over recent months, we've heard concerns about scale, about timing, about process, and about whether the project is progressively becoming inevitable regardless of future approvals. So even if members ultimately support redevelopment, I maintain there is value in pausing and ensuring the statutory and government foundations are fully resolved before materially escalating the procurement process any further. Over the past 18 months, we have heard clear messages about the roadmap. Every motion I've put forward, which aims to alter the roadmap, in essence to slow it down until after the election, has been met with comments akin to, don't touch the roadmap, keep the roadmap is our roadmap, and we should follow what it says as it's designed to ensure good governance and process. But now, and simply because the timing does not meet the expectations of the upcoming caretaker conventions, it is okay to change the roadmap. Council cannot have it both ways. So let me say this, if you've previously voted to stick to the roadmap, the sequencing of how the project was to be run, the very essence of good governance and good management and good process, that's what it was sold to us as, then you should vote consistently with that intent and not support a change to the roadmap and change the process on the basis that it suits getting this decision being rushed through before caretaker. I was reminded earlier this week of the famous quote from former Prime Minister Tony Blair, who said, "The art of leadership is saying no, not saying yes. It's very easy to say yes." And for those reasons and many, many others, I will not be supporting the motion tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Green. I was going to ask if there's anything else, but there's no one else. I might say a few things myself. Look, I think one of the good things about this council is the fact that we can have these types of debates respectfully and people are free to air their views, whether they're contrary or aligned. So I just wanted to thank you all for approaching it in the right manner. So we regularly prepare for different scenarios in life. In business, local government, in battle, you don't just prepare for one scenario, you have plan B and plan C. And I don't see anything wrong with the approach we're taking with preparing for scenarios differently. I also acknowledge that we put together a roadmap some 18 months ago, and it's not the same field of business I work in. I work in software. But in software, that's called a waterfall approach, where you design everything out from start to finish and you do not vary that. And then there's a term called the march to death in that scenario, where you keep doing that even though you know it's not going to work because things have changed over time. So I'm not saying this is a march to death, but I'm saying responsible governance and good management and good decision making should allow us to review the various stages of a project and react and respond to those changing circumstances. And I see it all the time with the sort of projects I'm involved with. And I think that this strengthens our reputation. If we didn't take this approach, I'm sure there's as many people who would be scratching their heads saying, why didn't you make those changes? You had the pathway cleared legally to make that change. There's precedents that we were made aware of, at least 6 examples of precedents in the last 2 to 3 years in the local government space, where the exact thing that we're intending on doing has happened, where RFP progress has been made without revocation. So we're not the first to do it. We received legal advice from one of the most preeminent lawyers in this space in South Australia. And I don't think it adds risk. People may disagree with me from that point of view, but I don't think it adds risk. I think it actually mitigates some of the risks, such as the Deputy Mayor mentioned as well. So I understand that it is a change to the roadmap. I think it's a responsible decision to make this change. It's been analysed and reviewed. We've had legal clearance to do it. And ultimately, I think it does provide benefit. The Deputy Mayor would like to sum up.
Very briefly, yeah, look, I've had a really good listen to, obviously, the debate, and just a couple of points in some summary is...
You change your mind?
You never know.
You don't.
We haven't voted yet.
No, that's true.
We haven't voted yet. So, however, having said that, I don't believe we're preempting anything. In fact, the Office of Local Government has requested the information through the CEO that we just don't have until we have a firm plan or a design or some costings. And that can only be obtained by going out to an RFP. The legal advice was clear, and this is not the first time this has happened, and there are various other examples around the state where RFPs have occurred prior to ministerial decisions. This process occurs regularly in the private sector, with proposals provided subject to council or government approval. So this is not new to the market. I strongly believe this is exactly what our community has been asking for. We'll finally have the true costings, the true heights, the true density, everything before we even start making final decisions. And it will provide all the information that we need and the information community has been begging for now for 18 months.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nelson. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Division.
Motion carried. If you vote in favour, please stand up. For the records. Okay, so that's the end of the non-confidential section of the meeting. So we're now going to move into the confidential section.